We had a couple of seriously interested people. Actually, I think 2 or 3 of them that were seriously interested. And the price kept going up, going up, going up. The other people that wanted Seed Armoury, I loved, but I didn't feel in my core that they had the capability to actually grow it the way that I wanted to see this thing grow. If I were to maintain control of Seed Armoury, I would have kept it on that incline. I would have kept it growing. And I had to make that judgment call. So that was the hardest part of the sale, was making that judgment call and finally, ultimately, the goodbye of Seed Armoury, knowing that I'm trusting somebody else. Yes, I've got a paycheck in hand, but I'm trusting somebody else to see my vision through and hopefully take it where I envisioned it going.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Humans of Flippa. Here I am today with Michael Herzog, who is a customer of Flippa, and he has had the unique experience of selling his business with Flippa, and obviously with the assistance of the Flippa platform. Michael, thank you so much for being with us today, and welcome to Humans of Flippa.
Hey, thanks for the invite. It was pretty exciting to get the invite.
So we've, as I alluded to before, and I'll introduce to everyone now, Humans of Flippa is really the stories of people who have been there and done that. They've had a good experience going through building something and then ultimately finding a pathway to exit of various values. We interview people who have sold businesses between literally $25,000 to $50,000 all the way up to tens of millions of dollars. And so there's a really, really large spectrum of individuals. But if you don't mind, can we just start with your story, how your business came to be, and what it was that got you started in the first place?
So Seed Armoury was actually really unique. It was years in the making. I've got a ton of notebooks. So right behind the camera, I've got probably 20 notebooks that are just random business ideas. And they're all things that I come up with, I brainstorm and I write it down. And I'm like, that's great. One day, maybe I could finally get to that. Well, Seed Armoury was in those notebooks. It was an idea that I had probably 7, maybe even 10 years ago. I thought, that'd be awesome to do. I love gardening. It was one of my kind of hobby things. So in the meantime, I'm running this big business and I'm running lead gen campaigns and I've got so much wrapped up into that I couldn't get into that. And like many people, the pandemic hit and it was like a screeching halt of everything. At the time, my company focused on in-home sales leads. So we were selling, we were information harvesters and we're selling in-home sales leads. And I see this big red flag and I'm going, oh no, this is going to be devastating. Who's going to want a strange salesperson in their home? And I already saw the writing on the wall. I'm going, okay, maybe this is time to slow down and rethink what we're doing. And then it hit me. And I knew somewhere in the book, I'm like, wait a minute, that seed idea, there was an idea that I had in there. So I start flipping through books. My wife's worried, just like every spouse is. She's worried about what we're going to do. She knows the numbers are already starting to go down. I said, what we're going to do? We're going to put this on hold for right now. We can come back to this. Nobody knows where this thing is going to go. So I started flipping through the books. I'm like, there it is. So, I start reading everything I had. I'm like, man, that was brilliant. It was a good idea. So Seed Armoury was a product of years of being on an ice block and just waiting for the right opportunity. The pandemic was absolutely the right opportunity to do it. And it gave me something entirely different. I had been stuck behind a computer forever. And now I'm like, I get to develop a product. I actually get to watch something. It was my first e-commerce. I had never been in e-com before. And I had helped others. I had done advertising campaigns for several small businesses that were in e-com. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll just take that expertise and jump into it myself. So it was really a unique experience. It was a learning experience for me. And Seed Armoury grew out of that. It was actually surprising how Seed Armoury grew out of that.
So this is a really fascinating story, and I obviously want to hear all about Seed Armoury. But first, tell us about these notebooks. So you have these notebooks, and that's just where you're documenting all of your ideas, and you're saying that you just went back through and started perusing your ideas. That therefore was the catalyst to start Seed Armoury. How long have you had these notebooks?
I have been keeping notebooks for probably every bit of 15 years. Some of them I look back and my wife, we just moved recently. We just sold our house and moved recently. And we're going through all my office stuff. And she's like, can we throw any of this away? I'm like, no, you can't throw that away. She said, well, they're just like ratty old notebooks. Yeah, I said, no, those are the notebooks. And she starts flipping through them. And, I go off to do something else. And I come back and she's like, why aren't you doing these? And she's reading through them and my kids are out there. My daughter's 12 and 13 years old. She's like, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing these? And I said, all in good time. Just like Seed Armoury was, each one of those, there's going to be a right time. And at that point, I guess we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But I'm only one person. I can only do so much. So yeah, I've got literally probably hundreds, if not thousands of different business ideas that I've had. And the frustrating part is time itself, because I go back through and when she was reading some of these, there's companies that have started up since that point in time. Maybe I wrote it down 8 years ago and, she looked back and she's like, this is happening right now. This is, so-and-so that's doing this. And I'm like, I know, it's great. I should have done that. Oops. So
this is sensational though. It's good learning for everyone. I mean, I must admit, I don't think, everyone has ideas, right? But the fact that you're so disciplined with writing them down and can continue to go back and review them and even laugh about them and have a bit of fun with them as well is a good thing. So Seed Armoury, we've heard ecom. So what was it? What is Seed Armoury? What did it do? What does it do?
All right. So Seed Armoury is basically it hits a certain target market of buyers. They are survival grade. Well, actually, I've got one sitting right here. So this is the small version of the product. If you can see that, this was what was called the medicinal ball. The little brainchild behind it was a pre-packaged kit of seeds. If you want to go off the grid and you want to focus on a self-sustaining lifestyle, something like that, we're going to give you every single thing that you need to be able to do that and reproduce those crops year after year and never have to go to the grocery store again, unless for meat or something like that. But that was the entire idea. And there were companies that did come about, since I had written that idea down. And what I did was I kind of went back and I'm like, well, what are they doing? How are they structured? What are they doing different? What can I do different that would be, far past anything that they're offering right now? And the one thing that I came up with was a book. So Seed Armoury, as a part of the large kit that you got, there was a book that went with, which I've got the book sitting right here. If we can see the book. So this is, written by Michael Herzog. That's me. It took me probably a month to come up with the book. And what it was basically explaining from start to finish every single thing you need to know to be able to grow the seed, to start the seed, grow the seed, harvest the seed, and start the process all over again. That was one place that everybody had an issue with. I mean, I was reading reviews, and that's really important. If you're starting a company or you're in business, any type of business at all, read the reviews of your competitors. And that's what I started doing. I read through all these reviews and I spent day after day after day looking at reviews, looking at social media, and people are like, great, you gave me a packet. The packet doesn't really explain this. And I'm going, hey, idea. Yeah, it helped the people actually follow through with this. So the book was huge. It was a crucial part of it. There was a point in time where we ran into an issue with printers of the book. This was during the pandemic. So we had an issue. The initial run of books, the printer ended up shutting down. They went out of business. And I'm going, oh no, now what do we do? I spent all this time working on this book. So I turned to Amazon, which was my last resort. I didn't want to go to Amazon. I knew they were going to take the profit out of the book. And I started thinking about it. And I'm like, you know what? Is it really about the profit from the book? It's more so this is something that people need. This is what makes the product. So the book was actually included with the kit for free. We took the loss from the Amazon publishing. I think we paid $14.78 per book to get it to us. And the book was $14.99 when it originally launched. So no profit to be made there. It's what made the product itself. You could buy the book separately if you wanted to. But more importantly, it was a value add for all of our customers, and they loved it. We've got great reviews on Amazon for the book, and we have had a lot of great feedback for it. And I'm thinking, hey, it's really cool. It's my first published book. It's not anything, worth anything other than knowledge, which is all it really is. So
this is a brilliant story in in branding and marketing as much as it is creating a successful e-commerce business. I hope you align to that as well. That because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can buy lots of these seeds from multiple different places. But the differentiation here is that it does appeal to a certain niche of customer. I'm looking at the homepage now. Clearly, the business is called Seed Armoury, and it says, "Will you be ready? What will your family be eating when the lights finally go out? Survival grade seed vaults, 100% heirloom seeds." And then, of course, you've got all the product there. Am I right in saying that in fact this is a fantastic story of really clever branding and marketing? Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. So we knew who our target market was when we were going into Seed Armory. Here in the U.S. we've got, and I don't even know if they're still on the air. Years ago, I watched shows called Preppers. I saw them pop up, and I'm like, what is this? So I started watching some of the episodes, and I'm going, wow, these people are really intense with what they do. I mean, to then, and everybody had a different story as to what they thought was going to happen, the end of their world, whatever their scenario that they envisioned. And I'm going, well, Seed Armory could go for that. We could actually get that target market and focus on those people. And that's exactly what we did. So, it was interesting to me. We've got a political climate in the United States right now, and I guess worldwide, really. But social media was a tug of war. The comments that would come through on our advertising, we had to closely monitor them. And I never actually deleted the comments unless they were something that was extremely unprofessional and vulgar. It's the only time that we would filter anything, but we would let people go to battle with each other. So we had customers that were on both sides of the coin. And it was great. We had the ones that were just seeking a super sustainable lifestyle. And then we had the ones that were the end of the world. And you could actually watch these people argue back and forth. And I'm going, well, this is actually really incredible. What a dynamic, because you're benefiting our advertising. You're boosting our comments. We're seeing, more and more traction on this. And it was leveraging that. It was the first time that in business I'd been like, well, we could actually leverage this. We don't care who the customer is. We genuinely want to get this product out there. We do have, that same mindset of sustainability. And, I would rather see farm to table stuff a lot more. So I come from both sides of it. I can see both sides of it, and catering to everybody, and then watching them get along, and then and through the comment feed, people starting to almost not diverge, but merge their lifestyles and say, well, you know what, here's a little bit of helpful advice that I can give you on this. And I'm going, this is incredible. I've never seen this. It's usually polar on these comments. And now, we're seeing people that are actually merging, and the customer base is merging, and we're going to both sides, something that we never thought was going to happen with Seed Armoury.
It's actually a phenomenal story, because not only have you found a niche, which is what we always recommend people think about when they're starting something new, or in fact acquiring something, but you've got a community which is being harnessed, and they're so vocal that to some extent they're building your brand and credibility for you, giving you a reason to exist. I imagine, and do correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that you're actually able to charge, I hope I'm not misstating this, but I imagine you're able to charge a premium, and it's a high margin product.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that was the one thing that's why Seed Armoury was written into the books, is because it was a high margin product. The one thing that I look at with any business, with any product, if you're developing something, a lot of people go for that, the discount mantra, I guess. They want to go in and they want to be cheaper than everybody else. And that drives me nuts. Never, ever, ever do that. If you want to get into a new market, you want to be the most expensive product that's in that market, but you want to differentiate yourself. Seed Armoury differentiated from every other product out there. We are a premium product. We're not a discount product. You can go to any home improvement store, and we'd see these comments come through as well. I can go to the home improvement store around the corner, the nursery around the corner, and I can get a packet of seeds for 99 cents. Absolutely you can, but they're not our seeds. They're not Seed Armoury seeds. Here is why ours are unique. And the new owners of Seed Armoury, I see them doing the same thing, and I give them props because they're actually following through with that. They're sticking with that. There's always a battle to be fought. We did it with professionalism when I ran the company, and that was our goal. It was always constantly rebut it and explain to people why. And the more you did that, and the more traction that you got with that, you would get the loyal buyers that would jump in, and they'd get on the comments and they'd start explaining why. And you're backing each other up at that point as to why Seed Armoury is the best, and we'd let it go. Before you knew it, we had 20 comments and one little sub-comment feed where people are just absolutely touting the product that they already purchased. They thought it was great. They've already grown them. People sharing pictures of our produce growing in their own gardens. Seed Armoury grew organically, I guess no pun intended with that. But it was a great thing to watch happen, and it grew more than I ever expected it to, and I expect in the future that Seed Armoury is probably going to become a very, very well-known brand.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the story. You had some great organic keywords as well, so that gives you some sense of people wanting to search for, at least at a long tail level, for stuff that you were selling. And I think that's a powerful play as well. Obviously, your Google Ads business on the basis of your core vocation. And so it looked like, at least at the time of sale, around 34% of traffic was paid search. Nearly 30% was social, which is fantastic. And then the 29% was organic or direct. In fact, 8.9% was email. So you basically got, what is that? So almost 40% of your traffic is organic, direct, and email, which is really, really compelling from an e-commerce standpoint. If you don't mind, Michael, let's talk a little bit about the sales process. So why did you choose to sell it in the first place?
Well, that was up for debate. So actually, I had another opportunity, and my previous business, besides this, I talked about lead generation. I had a lead generation company, and marketing. There's a lot of money to be made in that, and I was very successful with that. I had an offer to actually start a very large contract with the company, overseeing all of their lead generation.
Okay.
And it was one of those, I had to weigh it. Seed Armoury, this is my baby. This is my product that I've now created, coming from an idea book, and I've been going, what do I want to do here? I have experience in this. I know how much profitability there is in this. It's something that I love is boosting businesses. I did my own. Is the time that we let it go, and this was probably a 3-week conversation between my wife and I. This was a family business. I mean, that was the most important thing about Seed Armoury. Is all 4 of us, my wife and I, and our 2 daughters. I mean, this is what we did every single day. It was Seed Armoury. It became a way of life. And thinking about it, we're like, well, do we want to go back to the way it was before? Well, yeah, it was much simpler. I sat in front of a computer, and everybody else got to do their own thing. Yeah. Seed Armoury, everybody's involved, but we grew together in that. It was a great thing for the family. So selling it. It was one of those things that, if we do it, what's our life going to look like? We've got to relocate. At that time, we were relocating across the country. And, how are we going to get Seed Armoury and all of its contents across the country? What's that process going to look like? What's the expense going to be? And we ultimately came up with the conclusion that, maybe we ought to research selling this. Flippa, the research that I did, I'm going, I don't even know how to begin. I don't know how to sell a company. This isn't something that I do. I grow businesses. I don't sell businesses.
Yeah.
So Google led me to Flippa, and I started researching it, and I'm going, well, I don't know. What's my business even worth? I have no idea price point where I would start. Flippa's tool, evaluation tool. I did that, and I'm going, really, is it really worth that much money? If it's worth that much money, that's great. I mean, I know I make a lot of money off of it, but my wife walked in, she saw the number on the screen. She went, is that what we can get? And I said, well, that's what Flippa says we can get. I don't know. So long story short, we got far above what Flippa said that we could get. And a bidding war ensued, which was incredible. I never expected that. It was an exciting experience. It was probably the most exciting thing that I've ever experienced with business and selling a business. I didn't think that was possible. But to meet the people, and the next part was probably the most challenging for us, which was we had several people that were interested in Seed Armoury.
Yes.
And Zoom meetings, constant Zoom meetings, and dealing with our representative from Flippa. He'd call me up and he'd say, "Hey, we've got somebody else that's interested." And I'm going, "Well, is there somebody else that has the ability? I want to see this thing scale. I don't want to see it just kind of go to somebody else that's a family-run deal. If I'm going to let this go, I want it to go big." So I felt really bad at the end. We had a couple of seriously interested people. Actually, I think 2 or 3 of them that were seriously interested. And the price kept going up, going up, going up. And the other people that wanted Seed Armoury, I loved, but I didn't feel in my core that they had the capability to actually grow it the way that I wanted to see this thing grow. If I were to maintain control of Seed Armoury, I would have kept it on that incline. I would have kept it growing. And I had to make that judgment call. So that was the hardest part of the sale, was making that judgment call, and finally, ultimately, the goodbye of Seed Armoury, knowing that I'm trusting somebody else. Yes, I've got a paycheck in hand, but I'm trusting somebody else to see my vision through and hopefully take it where I envisioned it going.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting story, because we often hear that full families are involved in the making of these great businesses. We often hear that they're hard to let go. And often people think that the reason that someone's selling it is actually a little more sinister than it really is. In your case, it's a function of, you've got this big offer from presumably an enterprise level client. You've got a family who is fully invested, but you're looking to move to the other side of the country. There's a multitude of reasons why you would let it go. There's also a multitude of reasons why you would retain it. No doubt the emotion in that decision was reasonably substantial, but I'm absolutely delighted. And, as you know, you and I only had a 30-second chat before we joined. So this is actually new to me as well. And I'm absolutely delighted to hear that it was a good process, that you had multiple parties involved, and that you were able to actually get what you wanted for it. Without obviously revealing who purchased it, you mentioned that you were interested in selling it to someone who maybe had the expertise, or at least the want and desire to scale it above and beyond the level that you had. Are you able to talk to that just a little bit?
Yeah, so let me elaborate on that, and I'm gonna show you kind of both sides of what I was struggling with. One of them was on our end of the country here. They were on the West Coast. It would have been an easy transfer, 1 state over from us. So getting the equipment, getting everything over to them would have been a piece of cake. And actually inviting them to our home. They wanted to come to our home, see how our family actually ran this operation. And I loved it. We had a great relationship with them, great working relationship, multiple Zoom calls. But when they told me that they were also going to run it from their home, and it was going to be a husband and wife deal, and maybe at times their children who didn't live at home at that point, that was, I'm going, okay, I don't think this is scalable. On the flip side of that, we had a couple gentlemen from the East Coast that had contacted us. And I'm thinking, logistically, how's this going to work out? East Coast, we've got, all of this stuff here. How is it going to get there? And I'm thinking of all the problems. I'm not thinking of solutions at that point. I'm thinking of problems. Do we go for this one because it's easier? Do we go for the other one that may be more difficult? Well, the gentleman bought it. They had a successful Amazon FBA warehouse. So they'd already been in business. They've already done all of the logistics handling for getting products to customers. They have the expertise in that, and presumably the expertise in marketing. That was one of the things that I asked them was, what is your marketing level? I mean, where are you at? How do you market currently? And when they told me that it was mainly Amazon, I'm going, well, Amazon is explosive growth. If you know what you're doing. I've worked with plenty of companies that are completely Amazon FBA. I know how it works. I said, it's up to you. If this is something that you want to take on Amazon, we haven't done that yet. We haven't expanded because we can't handle that much business. I would love to see it that way. So we did. We did what we call a Ben Franklin close, which is 2 sides of the paper, write down the pros and cons to each offer. And at one point in time, both offers were the same. And I'm going, okay, who do I really want this to go to? I want this to scale. And it took my wife telling me, if you want to see this thing explode, this is my pick. And of course, I always listen to my wife. I take her advice, and I'm going, okay, yeah, all right, okay, I think you're right. So that was a choice that we made. The gentleman on the East Coast, they already had the building. They had a place that they could do this. The alternative of that was somebody would have had to have set everything up, would have had to have had a lot more training. And I wanted to make sure that whoever it was successful. We actually did probably 40 hours of training videos on how we run the operation. The gentleman that bought the business ended up getting a stack, a book that they could flip through, and if they ever had a question, they could go right to it. I made sure that they had everything they needed to be successful. And my wife laughed at me. She said, aren't you like on retainer or something for like 90 days? Can't they call you, or can't you just go there? I said, yeah, but it's easy. Instead of calling me 24/7, they could look at the book and watch the videos and train their staff. So it was essentially staff training videos that I had made. I said, show these to anybody that's doing this, whoever you have developing these products. These are your training videos. They didn't expect it. It was kind of my gift to them to make the transition a lot easier. I know it's difficult for anybody getting into something new, but that was important too. Just like what my book was for the customers, I wanted to do the same thing for the buyers of the business.
Michael, again, I mean, I didn't know you before we got started, but you're like the prototype business owner. We talk to people about that a lot. You've got to find a buyer who is most likely to succeed, because it's a reflection of you and the quality of the business. And despite the fact you might have the money in the bank, setting them up to succeed is arguably just as important. The one thing that you've talked about is, you talked about these documents, essentially SOPs, standard operating procedures. So for anyone listening to this interview, SOPs are a really, really great way to get started in your selling process. If you can start to develop those now, they're actually good for you running the business, but they're super helpful for the person exiting, or for the person acquiring, I should say. Michael, really, really interesting story. The actual transition process you alluded to there, you had some, sounds like retained hours. You obviously provided these SOPs. Did that process go as smoothly did they expect it to go as smoothly as it did? Any tips for people listening in as to how you can ensure that process runs well?
Honestly, I think that they were really surprised. Well, I know that they were surprised. They told me they were surprised with all the content that I provided for them. It was, Seed Armoury was seriously simple. Logistically getting everything to them. I think we had 3 massive crates. Now, keep in mind, with our products, it was a temperature controlled product. That was another thing that had set our company apart, was everything was kept refrigerated. We wanted to make sure that the viability of our product was still good. So that was important when we were discussing getting all of these to the other end of the country from our desert climate here. Is how are we going to do this successfully and make sure you don't end up with a whole bunch of dead product. That would be the worst case scenario. Really working with, I can't say that it would be the same for everybody, for every business, but working with the buyers, it was incredible. I made sure to go over and above. I wanted to make sure that they knew what they were doing, what they were getting, and that, they received the entire inventory. So the only thing I could say to your any prospective sellers of a business on Flippa is keep really good track of your inventory. I mean, we had everything down to what we could produce. We had a manufacturing software that showed us everything we could produce. That was all provided to the buyers. And I said, hey, getting into this time of year, it's time to probably ramp up. We should probably buy more. If it were me, I would be buying more right now. This is what I would buy, giving them that information. And we did. We worked with them, and we had to do some things outside of Flippa to be able to orchestrate the amount of inventory that they wanted to make sure they were protected for the rest of the year. Once we did that, everything was packed up, shipped off. They had paid for the shipping of all of Seed Armoury to go out to the East Coast. And it was a really simple process. So the only thing I can say to anybody looking to do this is get your ducks in a row, know what you actually have. Itemize every single thing in your inventory, anything that's required to make any of the products. Maybe you make your own stuff and you sell it that way. However it is, know what your business needs to thrive. and be very upfront with that with any buyers. Let them know, don't hide anything, because in the Flippa process, it's going to come out, especially if you're a higher value business, it is going to come out in the wash. You're going to see it. Be very upfront, so there are no surprises. And luckily with us, like I said, we have the manufacturing software. It itemized everything we had using Shopify, which is how Seed Armoury was run. It kept a really good track of all of our sales, so there was nothing to hide there. You can't really spoof Shopify that I'm aware of. So all of the records went over to them. It was a great, seamless process.
This is a wonderful, wonderful story. I can't wait to publish this. Thank you so much for being a part of it. For those of you who are listening in, Michael's business, Seed Armoury, it's sold for high six figures on the Flippa platform. He's also got a company called ad-impression.com, where obviously he can provide Google Ads and lead generation assistance. So please check out that. But Michael, thank you so much for being a part of Humans of Flippa.
Hey, thank you very much for the invite. I really appreciate it. And like I told you at the beginning, I was excited to get the invite.